Cheche, the show where opinion counts. We're here with Honorable Dan Maanzo and Senator Aaron Cheruiyot, discussing the issue of people's assemblies. At least 5 county assemblies have already passed that motion to adopt the establishment of people's assemblies, and we just now want to know what exactly that motion entails. We do not have a copy of the motion. We do understand it is the same motion that's being presented across all the counties for adoption, but Dan Maanzo is well versed with this particular motion. What exactly is contained in that motion? It's
just a motion seeking to set up the people's assembly so that the people can meet in a structured manner, and whatever they deliberate can also be forwarded in a structured manner, and therefore it is owned by law, such that now the people exercise their sovereign power, which they have donated to their leaders, work with the leadership, so that we can be able to have a better country. We can make the necessary amendments of the constitution, and eventually have a government fully owned by the people, because the way we are structured right now under the current constitution, we need to go back to the Kilifi draft. You know, Kilifi draft, if that's what became the Kenya's constitution, we will not be having these divisions we have. And I've seen recently Jubilee said we are also agreeing to this, to Kilifi draft. We are looking forward also into a constitutional amendment. And I believe the moment there are talks, there is dialogue between the 2 major parties, then it is easier to achieve Kilifi draft and form a government whereby there's no exclusion and every Kenyan feels part of that particular.
If I could ask you to describe the timelines, like now, yes, a motion is passed by a county assembly, then the People's Assembly is established, you say in a structured manner, then whatever it is discussed by the People's Assembly is sent back.
I estimate it a month, because you see the notices were given last week. And in the counties where this motion has gone through, then it's going to be implemented. And the moment it is implemented and the people do gather and forward their memorandums, and of course it will be recorded, so that you have proceedings of some sort and you have recorded, so that no one can say we never agreed on this.
How different are people's assemblies from public participation that is concisely provided for in the act that governs county governments?
In fact, public participation is exactly a people's assembly. It's just you know, public participation, you advertise it and you allow people to participate. Now this is broadly advertised from the grassroots and maybe through whatever other media, so that people know it is happening, and they say they are fully notified and can participate, so that no one is left out, whoever wants to contribute in one way or another. You know, not everyone may be able to agree to it. Probably there will be some dissenting voices, and they will also be heard, so that the country moves together. We amend our constitution, and we have a government which serves all Kenyans without exclusive some.
Okay, it's the route that this memorandum will take. Once the People's Assembly agrees on something and they come up with a memorandum, where does the memorandum go after that?
You know, the moment the document is owned by the Assembly, then it means you have proper records when it comes to the counties which have supported this initiative.
So it will go back to the county assembly again?
Yes, of course.
For
all the
discussion.
records will now be channeled through the county assembly of the People's Assembly.
And after that?
Of course, the matter eventually will come to Parliament and Senate. You know, deliberations will still be made, and a way forward on how to go into referendum. It's one of the routings you use to form a referendum. You remember last time, Okoa Kenya initiative, there was a 1 million signatures plus. To show that there are enough Kenyans who want to support referendum or constitutional change.
Yeah, Senator said that you were totally unable to get the 1 million signatures. Is that why you adopted?
No, we did.
Decided to choose a different route?
We did. They were only frustrated, and there are many methods which are open to Kenyans to be able to amend their constitution. One of it is through Parliament. But for Parliament to amend a section of the constitution, you must have 2/3 as a number. It has been difficult to achieve 2/3 in both Senate and in Parliament in the past.
But you have said that these recommendations from the People's Assembly they will go to the county assemblies, then end up in parliament and the Senate. I mean,
aren't you subjecting them to the same thing?
The same, and you don't have the numbers there also. So what will happen?
What happens when there is when you begin? You know there are several things you must achieve through the constitution to be able to agree into a referendum. And the only way Parliament operates is the experience we had with the Kiraitu Orengo Committee. You can never make a law of this magnitude or amend the constitution without that route. So eventually the country will have to do dialogue at the top level so that Parliament and Senate are in tandem and are in the same, we are moving at the same speed and our ideas are shared. And therefore the assemblies are important so that by the time we are coming to national level, the grassroots is with us.
Are you talking about another level of People's Assembly, that probably at the national level there'll be another baraza to discuss whatever comes from the counties?
Eventually that's what it will end up to being, that we can take stock and realize now Kenyans and majority of Kenyans want change.
But NASA has said that if the president wins this petition, you will not recognize the president, you will show your own president. How will that now work? Because you say people must speak, but you don't recognize the president.
First and foremost, you know that there are court matters which are going on. There are two at least petitions, the Moi petition and the John Moi petitions, which are proceeding this morning in the Supreme Court. It is only fair that we await the outcome of the Supreme Court. But whichever the case, whatever happens in Supreme Court, now Kenyans know currently as the IBC is constituted and the failures which have been there, and there's a lot of evidence showing in the many election petitions going across the country where there is this number of registered voters, but double the number voted on August 28th. And also in this August 26th election, you know very well there was no election. But that's a matter of the court to decide.
That's not the question.
I don't want to preempt it.
Well, that's not
but you
the
know
question.
very well there was no election. It's a matter of public opinion.
There was no election. Yes. There was no election. Therefore, you will not recognize the. So how will there be dialogue? If you don't recognize me, how can I talk to you?
Well, he has already said he's ready for talks after the court process.
He's ready, but you don't
there is no need now to push into what he could be thinking in his head or what Kenyans could be thinking in their heads. I'm just requesting that we let the court process.
But to a discussion, because we're focusing on the People's Assembly.
Why do you want us to preempt the court?
Because you're talking about the People's Assembly. Are you saying that in case Jubilee agrees to dialogue, that this push for establishment of People's Assemblies will dissolve?
It is part of the process.
Despite the dialogue?
Because even if Jubilee agrees into dialogue, you must have a process from grassroots.
So you will insist on your process to be part of the dialogue?
Well, it will be ongoing as the dialogue also kicks off.
Fred, something is clear here. Both parties represented here by Senator Cheche and Mheshimiwa Manzo agree that the country has challenges. They also agree that people have a right, the public have a right to voice their concerns. They also agree that there is need for dialogue. Now, where the problem is what do we dialogue about? I mean,
and probably the People's Assembly will come up with a kind of agenda.
What exactly will the referendum question be? And what exactly are the Jubilee people willing to talk to NASA about? That's what we need to know.
And probably let's ask the Senator, do you feel that there is a need for referendum to amend this constitution?
Well, my starting point is this. If you do not respect the constitution as is currently, then it is foolhardy to change thinking that you'll respect it at that point. Because what it will mean is that there's a certain end that you want to achieve. And so long as you don't achieve it, you think that the constitution is not a perfect document. And that is a completely wrong strategy that we do not agree with it. What we are pushing for and what we think is a correct position is to appreciate that there are certain national problems that we face as a country that we can sit down and negotiate about. Not these elitist problems. You know what Manzo is talking about here? These are elitist problems. I saw Musalia Mudavadi speaking the other day and saying, oh, we do not recognize the presidency and all this kind. And I think the gentleman has been a cabinet minister and everything that you can be up to a vice president in this country for close to 20 years. Now that he's jobless, it becomes a national problem.
But the question is, do you feel the need for a referendum to amend this constitution?
There isn't. Why should it? What is it that is wrong about this document? If today, Mheshimiwa Mahanzo, his side of the coalition had won the August 8th elections, would we be here having this kind of discussion?
I believe
probably
so.
We wouldn't be. Because according to them, all they are trying to do is achieve a certain political end, which is to control power. Unfortunately,
yes,
this document as currently has not been able to give them the right, because they do not have what is a constitutional threshold to lead this country.
Yet the president accepts the fact that there could necessarily be a need for dialogue.
Yes.
What informs that?
You see, there are two things that I don't want you to confuse, Fred. Talking doesn't mean that you will achieve eventually what the other party is raising. There are concerns that are raising about inclusivity in government, sharing of resources. Those are things that would be willing and more accommodative to listen.
And an amendment to the constitution is not part of the remedy to such issues?
If we get to that point where we do realize that for sure, to amend this kind of problem, you can only achieve this by amending the constitution, then so be it. But before we get there are certain remedies that are readily available. Only that NASA's, that's why I've told you, you keep on falling into NASA's trap, which is to say one thing, you understand it on face value, you get it completely wrong. What NASA are saying by this People's Assembly kind of thing is that we must get power by whatever means.
I don't think that's the case.
You alluded to a scenario were NASA to win the August 8th elections. You're saying probably would not be here discussing.
Yes.
That means they would have gotten what they wanted.
Yes.
So does it mean, as it is now in the constitution, the winner takes it all, and that's okay?
That is one of the things that I think we need to have a
so we need to
when we
need to change the constitution so that everybody is involved and not a winner takes it all.
Yes, and it is, to achieve such an end, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go through a referendum. These are challenges that are coming. This is a new constitution to us. There are things that we saw that we thought that perhaps by having a constitutional, this kind of constitution that we have today, when somebody runs to be president and they do not achieve it, with the kind of number of votes that one controlled, say in this case, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, if you do not find a way of considering what their views and aspirations was for the kind of people that they lead, then you are bound to have the kind of challenges that you're experiencing. It was a great fault on the part of drafters of a constitution not to at least establish the office of the official opposition leader, give him some kind of leverage and access to certain information to know how government is running.
So at some point,
so at least we need to change part of the constitution.
Yes, if we get to that point where we agree
but you just accepted that yes, there's there could be need to adjust a few things in the constitution,
which is true, and I have told you that option remains open, but not as a first option. That when you are meeting, you are saying we want to change the constitution. We need to listen to each other and say what is the problem. Why do you feel, for example, that opposition leader must enjoy some sort of official recognition in this document, either in parliament or out of parliament? Are there no other avenues within which we can carry on his aspirations? If we get to that point where we realize we cannot achieve this without amending the constitution, then so be it. The problem we have with NASA is that they're pushing it as a first option.
I think the good senator means well, but he must know that had NASA been the one in power, then you will imagine how much other numbers Jubilee will be controlling, and you will definitely be at the same situation, probably of exclusion. And every Kenyan is a taxpayer and deserves to be served right. We know that devolution up to now has failed miserably. Its implementation has challenges. There are many things. You are a senator and you should be knowing that the county assemblies, there are people who have not been paid salaries for a long time. Development has stalled. And these are problems emanating from the constitution. And that's why we want Kenyans to participate through the People's Assembly. They will make their own resolutions, which nobody can turn back against. There will be records say Kenyans spoke in one voice and said this. You can never amend the constitution unless you do for certain, like when you are changing government structure, you must do a referendum. Before you do that referendum, which will be conducted by the same IBC, you must agree on how to restructure these IBC. And that's where we go back to dialogue, so that we don't go into an empty referendum, whereby we are going to have another a stolen referendum. The way the election is stolen.
Stolen means
fraudulent
you are not
election.
able to win.
You know, we want to remove fraud
there's a question
from election.
Mutegi
And there are institutions set up in the constitution.
There's a question
which we must look at.
Mutegi Njau asked that you're hoping to go for referendum through this push, yet you still want to use mechanisms in the constitution which you, by your own admittance, you're not able to meet the threshold. That's the numbers through parliament, that's the collection of 1 million signatures. You and yourself admit that you've tried it before, it's not going to work. So how else?
It only failed because of electoral fraud. It did not fail for any other thing. It was manipulated.
Yet right now,
there are over 1 million Kenyans who want the constitution changed. But
how
you have
do
to have a record.
How will you achieve it this time around? Even once the People's Assemblies do come up with the recommendations and the memorandum, you still say it has to go through Parliament. How else will you go about it?
The People's Assembly will have records. It will show how many people participated, their ID numbers, and they signed up for it.
So what?
You can take stock.
It doesn't
Then what
matter.
happens?
It doesn't matter even if it is the 250,000 Kenyans. When it goes to Parliament, you have no numbers.
No, we have numbers. What has happened is
Wouldn't
that
it be easier?
what has happened is that there are a lot of stolen seats in assemblies, in parliament. That's why we have over 300 election petitions.
Will you, for example, use
and I
the
can
People's
assure you, by
Assembly?
the end of these election petitions, most of them, the numbers will change in the
Honorable
House.
Manzo, will you, for example, use these People's Assemblies to collect 1 million signatures towards a popular initiative for a referendum?
Of course, it will be easier now to have all the requirements met in the constitution, but we must have political will, because the institution to run the referendum is IBC.
Isn't it a
and
fact?
that's where the problem is.
Isn't it a fact that when we were writing this constitution in 2010, that the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga was always supporting the parliamentary system? In the final analysis, when he went to Naivasha, he changed to presidential and influenced people to go to presidential. Now he thought he would win. Now that he didn't win,
No,
that's
no,
why the
no.
That's why
That's
he
not
didn't
the
even
case.
include the office of opposition leader.
That's why-
because he knew I'm winning this next,
No,
next election.
No, 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 that's not the case. In
What is the
fact,
case?
some people who removed the Prime Minister's position from the Kilifi draft because they thought it was destined to him. And you know, these are just political machinations. The truth of the matter is, beyond Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, the future of Kenya, what is it? We have to determine it now through the Kenyans themselves. It is now practically known, and that's why a lot of people oppose, including this senator. They oppose the constitution. The churches did. There are a lot of people, you know, but because it became the constitution, they had to come on board and support it, knowing that it has problems, it has holes, 80% of it is workable, 20% is not. And this 20% is so painful that it cannot hold Kenya together, and it has to be changed. And it cannot change without dialogue and without us agreeing on certain things, because you have the same mechanism, you have the same IBC to conduct it.
So, Bwana Manzo, you agree to dialogue, but on your own terms and conditions. Is that
Not
the thing?
exactly, not exactly.
So
You know,
why,
when people-
why can't the leadership of NASA meet the president or Jubilee, who Bwana Cheruiyot here says are willing to dialogue?
Jubilee is willing to dialogue, NASA is willing to dialogue.
So why can't
we
you
have
dialogue?
said, what both sides have said is, lest the Supreme Court, which is an institution of the Constitution, complete its work. There's no need for us, if we conduct dialogue right now, we will be discussing matters which are already before the court. So part of them. So we have to look at the structured dialogue which happened in 2008. You know, there were records, and for everything which was agreed upon, everybody signed, and they moved on, and there was even an act of parliament. You cannot do dialogue where there will be no, or even make all these changes without a certain structure approved by parliament. So we need all of us to be honest with each other, open-hearted, and chat freely on the problem facing the country, because they will not end with the Jubilee government. Even when there is another government in power, you still have these challenges so long as the constitution is not amended.
Okay, Senator, you look like you wanted to add
Yeah,
something.
the point that I wanted to say is this. You know, you've got to give it up to NASA's leadership for one thing. The cracks, when I listen to NASA leadership with a lot of keen attention to detail, the cracks of the matter, the thing that they're raising is that they want, the reason they do not feel that they agree with the decision of a majority of Kenyans that Jubilee deserves another chance is because there is complete exclusion you know, of certain parts of the country. And it is a fallacy that when you scratch deep upon it, you realize that this is nothing but horse trading by the elites, nobody else beyond it. You know, when you listen to these guys, you would imagine that perhaps Jubilee has been so unfair to certain quarters of this country that maybe in 2013, somebody who lived in Langata, just by the virtue of Jubilee winning, they moved back to Kibera. And now, the only way they can move back to Langata is if NASA wins back the seat of power, which is completely untrue. It is only certain that what we have is agitation by the NASA elites, but they have managed to camouflage this problem to a point that it looks as if it's a national problem. You do remember that we had a well-researched document that was presented, I think, 2 years ago before the country about the ethnic distribution of positions in government across the communities, and we had members of number one, I think, was members from the Kikuyu community with about 20%. Then number two was Luya. Number three was Kalenjin. Luos were number four. Kambas number five, which is generally the distribution of tribe across the country, which tells you everybody has a chance to be and to serve in government. The only problem is that NASA makes it appear before their leadership that for Kambas to feel that they have been represented in government, there must be 2 or 3 cabinet ministers. That's a fallacy.
Gentlemen, we're about to take a break and finish up with this discussion because we need to move to another discussion. Anything you can add briefly?
Yes, I think Senator has gotten it wrong. First of all, you know, that's why we want the people to own it so that it does not become an elitist affair. And again, also, we have to make sure that, suppose now it was NASA in government, it means it will serve every part of the country. It will not serve just the NASA affiliated regions. So the moment one forms government, you have to serve the whole country. The government is for the people of Kenya. And that's why there's nothing wrong with us proposing that we have a better systems of election. We have a situation whereby we have free and fair election, and we have a situation whereby you can also have a free and fair referendum.
Okay. Time now for a break. Of course, at least 5 counties have already adopted that proposal for the establishment of people's assemblies. It will continue. The same motion is being presented to all the other more than 40 county assemblies. What will happen after that, we do not know. After the break, we delve into matters devolution. A new report by the Auditor General has exposed wanton pilferage of public funds by county governments. At the same time, county governments are complaining of a crisis. Money allocated to them is yet to be disbursed by Treasury. That when Cheche returns.